Hello, this is MVJ, your inner strength relationship and individual coach, using African philosophy along with Western psychology, helping you to live your life more abundantly. I'd like to give a shout out to the Facebook community, to YouTube, Instagram. Thank you all for your positive comments, all of your likes, your shares. I really appreciate it. I'm reading every one of those, and I just really appreciate every last one of you. Special shout out to Lotus Magazine. I'm looking forward to the interview on Sunday, April the 15th. Right now, I'd like to give a shout out to the African American Family Cultural Center. Bobby and I, we had a great conversation the other day. If you guys get a chance, go down there and support them. They're doing some great work out there in the community with the youth, the families, and the whole community in itself. At this time, I would like to give a shout out to my mother, Sheila Moore, for all of her helpful insight and her encouragement. Most of all, I would love to give a shout out to Michelle Beltran. She's the structure behind MVJ Inner Strength Coaching. She's the one that helped launch this business and get it started. Words cannot express how much I really appreciate her helpful insight and all of that she's done for this particular business. All right, well, we got a great topic on our hands today. We're going to talk about communication differences between men and women. What can we do to try to bridge the gap? How can we communicate better in the relationships that we cherish the most? This was written by Preston Nye back in 2015 in Psychology Today. He wrote about 10 reasons why couples tend to break apart. Number one, he put trust issues. Number two, he put different expectations. 3 was moving through life at different speeds. 4 was compatibility issues. 5 was communication issues, and this is what we're going to be covering today. 6 is narcissism. The definition of narcissism is an inflated sense of self-worth. Number 7 was relational abuse. 8 is life habit abuse. Now, this is something that I've seen in my career working with different people, is that folks have some people have a problem with drugs or alcohol. And it could be anything that they're addicted to. Gambling is another one. That's a big problem in a lot of different relationships. Number 9 is that they've grown apart. And this could be, there's many different reasons why this happens. Sometimes a person is very career and goal oriented, and while the other person doesn't have those same type of passion in their own life, and so over time they've grown apart. And sometimes it could be they're both very career goal oriented, and then they move in those different directions because of where their careers and where their goals and their ambitions take them, and so they've grown apart. Number 10, and this is the big kahuna, this is money issues. And so this again was one of the things that I've seen that's really detrimental to a relationship, is the issues of finances. This was written by Bo Jackson. He said that when he leaves the ballpark, he leaves everything there. And when he hits the driveway, he becomes a husband and a father. Really interesting statement by Bo Jackson, a great sports figure way back in the day. One of the things that I really captured from that was the fact that he was able to leave his work at work and become a husband and a father at home. And that's where a lot of us really fall short, is that we tend to take our work home with us, and it becomes problematic to the family because they're looking for that husband and that father. And this gets in the way of communication. A lot of times couples are usually overstressed because of the work situation. They're unable to separate themselves from the everyday mundane problems that go on in the workplace. And I think this is where a lot of us kind of lose focus, is that we tend to take the stresses from work home with us. And that's where we get into a lot of trouble as far as relationships are concerned and communication is concerned. And I would agree with you that it's really difficult sometimes, because when our work becomes our life, it becomes that much more problematic to try to have a warm and nurturing relationship at home when you have the stresses of work lingering in your mind. It's really difficult. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. But there's certain ways that we can communicate with our spouse, our girlfriend or boyfriend, what have you, to our partner, to be able to work through the problem without the problem becoming the catalyst to a bigger issue. And I think this is the problem that men typically fall victim to, is that we don't want to appear to be weak. So we hold all of our problems on the inside. And so we want to give the appearance that we have everything under control, but on the inside there is a violent tornado that's swirling on the inside of us. And I would argue that holding it in on the inside and not talking about it to anybody is probably one of the most unhealthy ways of dealing with the problem. And so when we hold it in, this creates a further gap between the partner that we have and ourselves, where we're pushing ourselves further and further away from wanting to talk about the issue, and whereas our partner wants to talk about the issue. And so the other partner kind of feels like they are feeling isolated from you. But there is a way that we can communicate our problem to our significant other. One of the main things that we have to establish first in a relationship is trust. Without trust, the whole relationship kind of falls apart. And so we have to have that good foundation of trust. The other part is respect. Respecting the boundaries of our significant other. You know, there may be a time when he or she does not want to talk about the issue, and then giving that space for them to kind of deal with it, or to work with it within themselves. And then we can come back later and talk about that thing that may be interfering with the relationship. The other thing is empathy. So when the person does want to talk about the problem or the issue that may be going on with them, it's important to stay mindful, to be mindful in the moment, and not to have our mind zoning off onto other issues that we may be frustrated with our partner, but to be very present with them. And this is where the theory of the queen comes in, Malkia, the Swahili word for queen. What are some of her characteristics? She listens. A queen is patient. A good queen is kind. A good queen is thoughtful, non-judgmental, and forgiving. And what about the king? The king listens. The king is patient. The king is kind, thoughtful, non-judgmental, and forgiving. So those are good qualities in both the Malkia and Mafame, both king and queen. When you're looking at a relationship and you're seeing that there are some problems that begin to arise, it's those type of virtues that need to come out in order to rectify the problem. And you know, as you look at these different virtues from both Malkia and Mafame, if you're looking at those type of virtues there, you're not seeing anything that speaks of me, just meism or selfishness. Those qualities, those virtues are giving. And they could take the relationship much further along down the road, down that journey of togetherness, of living in true peace, when you start to recognize that those qualities are meant to draw the person closer. Imagine how wonderful that relationship would be if both parties were giving. And I've been guilty of that selfish energy myself in a relationship. and it didn't get me anywhere, but a good lesson learned. But when you exude that positive energy within the relationship, the rewards compound on itself exponentially. And you can see it when a couple is living in harmony and when another couple is not. It's really difficult to try to hide negative energy in a couple. When you see a couple walking down the street, it's really difficult to do that. Now, some people are really good at hiding it, and some people are absolutely terrible at hiding that type of energy. But why would we go through all of that hardship of trying to fool people around us and try to make believe that we are truly happy in a relationship when you can be happy? You can have the relationship that you desire, but it's going to take some sacrifice on both sides of the party, both sides. And we have to come to the realization that it is not going to be our way 100% of the time. It's just not going to happen, especially being in a relationship. There's going to have to be some sacrifices involved in order for that relationship to truly flourish. And also, you have to give space in that relationship for it to truly evolve, to change. There's going to need to be some breathing time within that relationship of maturation, where it can mature and start to establish itself. The relationship that you had with your spouse in the beginning should be significantly different than it is today. So let us recap on some of the issues that tend to plague the relationship. 1 is not being willing to talk about it. 2 is bringing the problem home with you. 3 is not including your spouse or your partner or your significant other into what's going on in your world. Also, we looked at some virtues from the queen. We looked at some virtues from the king. The queen and the king, they both have virtues of listening and being patient, kind, thoughtful, non-judgmental, and forgiving. These virtues are not selfish, is the other thing that we brought up earlier today. But when we begin to give and when we begin to understand and take a non-judgmental stance in the relationship, things can go a lot smoother. But we cannot establish a good relationship on faulty premises, things that are too lofty or wishful thinking. We have to understand that those relationships, true relationships, are going to have problems. They're going to have issues, but it's how we deal with the issue, how we begin to resolve the issue and work together in unity. But how could it flourish and develop if we do not hold those virtues true to ourselves? That's the question that we have to ask. We have to really be honest with ourselves. If we are to have a relationship that we truly desire, we look on TV and we see people happy and skipping through the valley and holding hands, and it's kind of like that Little House on the Prairie kind of look, but life isn't like that. When that TV is turned off and then you're sitting there with the person next to you and you're frustrated by that person and upset with them, and you're sitting right next to them or her and you can't stand to even look at them. So we got to keep it real. We have to really be honest. That's when it really becomes real. But we have to really dig deep within ourselves and be honest. One of the virtues that I think was really helpful in the relationship is patience. Do we truly have the patience that we should have in a relationship? Are we easily frustrated? Do we get turned off really easily? Those are the questions that we really have to ask. But when you are patient, when you have these great virtues, then it makes it easier to try to be more forgiving when that person doesn't meet the level that they're expected to meet in the relationship. All right, that's going to do it for today. This is Blogcast number 1. Thank you for tuning in. Please like, send your comments, and subscribe to the newsletter. If you know someone that may benefit from the information I will share today, please send them to www.montrieljamari.com. This is part of that Uhusani Watu, the big village, the collective whole, the greater good. Till we meet again next time, this is MVJ, your inner strength, relationship, and individual coach, helping you to live life more abundantly.